So for the pattern in today's video, you will need to use a worsted weight yarn, tape measure, stitch markers, scissors, a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends as well as for seaming up the sides, and a 6mm crochet hook. A little bit about the yarn in today's video. I used Lion Brand jeans. This is a worsted weight weight 4 yarn, and this one is 100% acrylic. I think it gives a nice drape to this fabric. They're recommending using a 5.5mm hook, but I went a little bit higher with the 6mm to make it nice and loose. There is 246 yards in this, and depending on the size that you need, that will determine how many skeins of yarn, and all of that is available in the pattern below. So to begin this pattern, I've gone ahead and made a chain of 170, and this is for the size medium. The other chain lengths will be in the description box below for a link to my website. And I'm going to go ahead and start doing half double crochets in every single stitch except for the first one. So I'm going to skip the closest stitch from the hook. I've yarned over, and I'm going to go into the second stitch from the hook, yarn over, pull through, and now I have 1, 2, and 3 loops on my chain. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 for my first half double crochet. I'll show you that again. I'm going to yarn over, go through the next loop, pull through. Now I have 3 loops on my chain, and I'm going to pull through for the half double crochet. Yarn over, go through both loops, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. So this is the basic half double crochet. If you're unfamiliar, I do have a tutorial on how to do a half double crochet, and it goes over what the anatomy is of the half double crochet as well. So I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to yarn over, go through each loop. Oops. And if your yarn splits, it's okay. Just make sure you go back and get all of it, just like that. This yarn is super soft, and I think it's going to make a lovely cardigan. So yarn over, go through, and so I have 169 of these to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you back and show you how we're going to start with row 2. So I'm just about to put in my last half double crochet. I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and then pull through all 3, and I'm going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our very, very long chain. And just a tip for you, if you were having trouble counting your chains, what I like to do is take a little stitch marker and mark off about every 40 stitches, put that in there, and then I know I'm at 40, so if I lose count or I get distracted, I know where to start counting from. So for this chain, about every 40 along the way, I placed a stitch marker, and that helped me keep track of my stitch count. Okay, so for now our second row, you can see here that we have the other side of the half double crochet, which looks very different from, this is the front side and this is the back side. And this is going to be our wrong side, and this is going to be our right side. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to work in the third loop here of the half double crochet. So I want to show you something. So you have your half double crochet and you have your normal 2 loops, right? And you can see that right here, there's your 2 loops. What we're actually going to do is, so on your wrong side or on your back side is this back loop right here, and that's what we're going to work into. And what that's going to do is it's going to force this chain forward and make a very, very pretty chained or braided work on this. So let me show you how we're going to do that. So we've chained 2. And this chain 2 is not going to count as anything. So I'm going to go ahead and in our first half double crochet, I'm going to go into that third loop, yarn over, pull through, and we're going to do a double crochet, just like that. And now this portion of the cardigan is going to be a mesh, so I'm going to chain one, skip one, and then I'm going to yarn over and do a double crochet into that third loop again, just like that. Again, chain one, and you're going to skip one, and then we're going to yarn over and do a double crochet into that area there. And so you can kind of see how that mesh is coming together. Let me do a couple more for you. So we're going to chain one, skip one, yarn over, and in the third loop, all the way back here, we're going to do our double crochet. Chain one, skip one, double crochet. And if I flip this over, you can see how you get that little braided area that's coming up really nicely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. I'm going to yarn over. I've already done my chain one, skip one, and into that third loop, and then yarn one, skip one, yarn over, or chain one, skip one, and then we're going to yarn over and do a double crochet. So like that, and then you can see on our right side how pretty that's looking. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this, and I will meet you back when I get to the end to show you how to do the next row of our repeat. So I've reached the last loop on my chain, and I'm going to just go ahead and go through both loops for this last one, just like that. Oops. And do my double crochet. And so now we're done with row 2. I'm going to chain 2, turn my very long chain, but remember we're going to be working this the front and the back panel at the same time, which is why it's so long. I've chained 2, and in that same stitch, this chain 2 will not count as anything. I'm going to do a back loop only, half double crochet, and I'm going to continue to do that going across. So just to give you a quick reminder on what the back loop is, so we have both loops here that make up the top of our double crochets and our chain ones, and we're just going to be working in the back loop, just like that. And just to show you again, I'm going to yarn over, find my back loop, just like that, yarn over, or pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. One more time, yarn over, back loop only, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, yarn over, back loop only, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring this little part to the front to give this just a little bit of added texture to this cardigan. So I'm going to keep going for a little bit just so you can see what that's like. So I'm finding those back loops only. Yarn over, pull through, and keep going. Back loop, half double crochet. And this basically, this row now, row number 3, is going to be part of the repeat we're going to do until we get to the neckline area. So now I will continue rows 2 and 3 until I get to the middle area, and then we'll work on, I'll show you how to split for the neck, and then we're going to continue going on. Then the next step after that will be to add our sleeves, and then the last step will be to add the border. So I'm going to keep working on this. When I do get to the last one here, so again, this is going to be the last stitch here, I am going to again grab both loops. I will not do a back loop only on the last stitch of every row. It's just going to help make a nice cleaner edge, and it will also help us when we're adding on our border. So remember, for every last stitch, go through both loops. Do not do, for row 3, you're going to go through both chains, and for row, when you're doing your half double crochet rows, you're going to not do the back loop. You're going to go through, or the third loop, you're going to go through both chains, just like that. I have now reached the halfway point on the body of the cardigan, and I have finished 18 rows, and I've ended with my mesh row right here. So to begin the split for the two panels of the cardigan, um, what I've done is for a medium, I have counted my stitches and gone halfway and put a stitch marker right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to where I've started and do the next row in the pattern, which for me is going to be a row of half double crochets. And I'm going to stop on the stitch before my stitch marker. So I'm going to stop right here. And then when I get here, I'm going to go ahead and make a chain of 85 stitches because that is exactly what this halfway point represents. There's 85 stitches from here going to the end, and I'll make a chain. And then what I'll do is I'll turn it around and work that chain with the following row, which will be a mesh row. And what that'll do is it'll create a nice part in the middle of my cardigan. So you can see how pretty this is coming along and how beautiful the texture is. If you're getting a little bit of curl here at the end, don't worry too much about that. When you block it, it'll straighten out. Plus, we are going to be using this end to seam in later, so no worries about it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do my rows of half double crochet, and then when I get here, I'll show you how we're going to do the chain part next. So I finished row 19, which is my splitting point for the size medium, right here, and right in the stitch before my stitch marker is where I stopped with my rows of half double crochets. Then I went ahead and made a chain of 85 because for my size medium I had 85 stitches left, and I'm going to show you how that looks. It's always going to be a little bit longer than what you think, like in terms of the length of the chain versus this. But don't worry, because once you start putting in your next row into your chain, it'll tighten it up and bring it in. But it is really important to triple check your stitch count before you start, because if you are off on your stitch count, you're going to end up with an uneven cardigan. So now that I have my 85 stitches, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more stitches to there. And then, right, I have my 85th stitch right there. I'm going to go ahead and go back into that 85th stitch with a double crochet. And now I'll go ahead and because it's a chain, it's easy to flip my work. But now I'll go ahead and officially flip my work so that we can work it correctly. So as you can see, I've done my first double crochet. That chain 2 will not count as anything. I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, which is going to be this stitch right here, and then do another double crochet, just like that. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into that next, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. And I'm going to do that all the way back to my starting row. So as you can see, what's going to happen is when I get to this center part, I'll just be working it continuously along until I get to the end of this row. So that'll complete row 20 for the medium. I will have all the details for the pattern in my blog post that's going to go along with this. So don't worry if you missed something in the video. So I'm going to continue this, and I'll meet you back and show you what it looks like after I finish this row. I've just finished row 20 of my pattern, and I've left my stitch marker in here just so you can see where the split was. And when I got to here, remember now we have to go back to working in that back row of our half double crochets so that we can get our little braided or chain pattern right here. So I've gone all the way to the end, and I finished my row, and now all I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the same pattern that I've been working this whole entire time until I get to the end of the rows for my size. So when I finish that, I'm going to meet you back and I'll show you how we're going to do the next steps in this cardigan. So I finished the main body of the sweater, which includes the back and front panels, and the split for where the cardigan opening is going to be. This was that same stitch marker. I've left it there for when I divided my stitches. And what I've done is, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see it a little better, is I've gone ahead and just folded it in half. So this is my opening, and I have the wrong side facing up. So you can see this is our pretty design work here, and then this is the wrong side. And what we're going to do is we're going to seam up the sides and measure out the opening for our armholes. So for the size medium, I measured out about a 7-inch opening. I kind of want a more open sweater, so you can use it for layering. But this is an area where it's totally up to you. You decide on how much of an opening you're going to have. Because this sweater or this cardigan is stitched with an odd number of stitches for the side, what we're going to end up is for the sleeve opening, we're going to have an odd number, and I will show you how to deal with that when we're working on the sleeves. So what I've done is I left a very long tail here, and I have just placed stitch markers as I'm going to help me kind of keep everything even. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to put a needle on my thread and I'm going to show you how we're going to seam up this side. I'm going to go ahead and take off my first stitch marker right here, and I now have my my tapestry needle threaded with the yarn, and I'm going to show you how I like to seam up the ends. So for the first stitch, I'm always going to go through both loops, just like that, and then I like to go through twice. And what I'm trying to do is make it very, very strong so that it will hold up to my pattern. Now, you can see that there is an outside loop and an inside loop on this. So going forward, I'm only going to be working on the outside loops of each of my stitches on the side. So just like that. And the reason I'm doing that is it'll give the right side of the sweater or the right side of the cardigan a really, really pretty finished kind of chain to it. So outside and outside, just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going until I get to the top stitch marker that shows where my sleeve hole is, and I will tie off there. And then you'll repeat the same thing on the other side of the sweater, and then I'll meet you back to show you how we start the sleeves. Okay, so I am back. I have actually attached one sleeve already, and I'm going to show you now on the other side how I did it. For the sleeve, we're working in the round and we're not doing any decreases the whole entire way, so it makes it kind of a nice baggy cardigan, which will allow you to layer up with this. For the edge of the sleeve, I've added a single crochet ribbed border, and I will show you how to do that. And I've seamed it on the inside to kind of give it a nice little edge, just like we have the edges going around here. So I've left the harder side sleeve to show you. So if you'll remember, when we started this pattern, we started with a chain, and then we went right into our half double crochets. So on the other sleeve where we ended, you'll see that it's really easy to work into the third loop of the half double crochet, but for our initial one, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to show you a trick to make it look consistent with the other side. I've also left my stitch marker here. The reason I've left that stitch marker there is I want to make sure that I don't catch these two loops when I'm working in the round, because that's going to throw off my stitch count. I also have left a really long tail when I seamed it, so that if there is a gap here, which there probably will be, I can go back and seam it up to bring it together so that you don't have a really large area under your arm. That's going to make the sweater look not pretty. So let me talk to you a little bit about exactly the anatomy of this upside down half double crochet that we're going to be working with. So this is row 1 right here, and this is row 2, which is our double crochets. So what I'm going to do is identify one of those double crochets and find the half double crochet right above it. You're going to see 2 loops right here, and those are the loops we're going to be working in order to kind of mimic the same pattern that you'll see over here. So we're gonna go in there, we'll skip the next 2 loops, and then we'll go into these 2 loops, and those 2 loops are part of the half double crochet. So let's go ahead, we'll find our seam, which is right here. I'm going to find the next double crochet from row 2, and then identify the 2 loops for the stitch above it, and that's going to be where we're going to start. So I've taken my yarn and I've just made a little knot right there, and I'm going to go ahead, let me remove that, and slip stitch, grab both of those loops and slip stitch into that loop right there. And we'll just go just like that. And then we're going to get all those little splitty pieces up, chain 2, and then I'm going to go ahead and work back into there and do my double crochet. And so you're going to have a little, as we're working, you're going to have a little doubled area. That is going to be our seam. We're going to chain 1, skip the next half double crochet, and then yarn over and do a double crochet into those 2 loops right there. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and go into those 2 loops right there. Chain 1, and then just keep going. We're going to do a couple more, and I'm chaining 1, skip 1, and then double crochet. And once I do a couple more, I'm going to turn it over so you can kind of see what it looks like. Remember to skip, and then we're going to go right there. Okay, and let me turn it around and I'll show you what it looks like so you can see. So it's not going to be exactly the same as this, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So that's going to really help us with continuing on our pattern. So I'm going to keep going. I've chained 1, I'm going to skip 1 and work right into there. And I'm going to keep going until I get around back to where I originally started, and I'll show you how we're going to work that. So I'll meet you back shortly. So I'm back to where our seam is and where our starting point is. And remember, because you're going to have an odd number of stitches, you will end up having to do a little trick, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. And you're going to go from having 51 stitches around your sleeve to 52. So I'm going to yarn over, and this is my last loop before my seam. You can see that's where my seam is. Do my double crochet, then I'm going to chain 1. Remember, skip this, pretend like it's not there, and we're going to work right into this next loop. And we're going to work right into this next loop. We're going to double crochet right there. We're going to chain 1, and that right there is our increase. We're going to find the top of our double crochet here, and we'll slip stitch into there. And then what I'm going to do is chain 2 and turn my work. And you're going to always be turning your work as you're working in the round, so that you can make sure that you end up with a nice even flat lay. Plus, we need to make sure that we're going to be working in the 3rd loop of those half double crochets. So that'll happen on the next round, where we're going to be working again from the inside of the sleeve. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to find this first stitch, and I'm going to just half double crochet. And so that is starting chain. So this stitch right here, don't use that loop. When you come back around, you've already used it. So this is your first starting stitch right here. So when I get to this stitch, when I'm working around on the back, I will go ahead and slip stitch into the top of this to end the round. And make sure you're doing your counts right, because if you're not, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with adding a sleeve and doing increases instead. So always make sure you have the right count. So I'm going to just go ahead and do my back loop only, half double crochets, just like with the rest of the pattern. And you can see how that is basically like a repeat. When I get around a little bit further, I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to fix that seam, because there is a little bit of a gap. But we'll just go ahead and take our long end and seam it up. So I will show you how to fix that too. So I'm going to keep going with my back loop only, half double crochets, and then I'll meet you back and show you how we're going to do the next round. I am back to my beginning stitch right there, and remember, even though it looks like there's a loop there, we've already counted for it with our first stitch. So I have my half double crochet. I'm going to just go ahead and slip stitch in here, chain 2, and turn my work. And now we're going to be working on the inside of the sleeve again. So this is where we have our normal third loops, no more kind of figuring it out like we did down there. I'm going to yarn over, and this is my first stitch right here, my little thicker seam stitch. I'm going to go ahead and find that third loop, which is right there. I'm going to yarn over and double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, find that third loop, and do my double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, mesh pattern. I'm going to keep going around with this, and then I'm going to continue my sleeve up until I get to the end. Once I get to the end of the rows, I think for the medium I did about 14 repeats. I'm going to make sure I end on a half double crochet row. The next thing then I'll show you is how we're going to do our ribbed border for the sleeves, and we still have to finish the body of the sweater. We still have to do a border along the neckline as well as the end. So once I get to the end of the sleeve, I'll meet you back and show you how to add on the ribbed part. So now I'm going to show you how we're going to do the ribbed border that goes along the ends of the sleeves and the border of the cardigan, the edges of the cardigan. We'll be doing something similar for the neckline, but I'll show you that separately. So I'm going to go ahead and make a chain of 9, and we'll just make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I'm going to skip the chain closest to the hook, and I'm going to go ahead and single crochet in the second chain from the hook, just like that. And I'm going to keep going and single crocheting till the end, and at that point I'll have 8 single crochets. And that's 7, and this should be 8, just like that. And I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work, and that chain 1 does not count as anything. So now I'm going to find the back loop, which is that right there, and I'm going to do a single crochet into the back loop only. So just like that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then for the last one, I'm actually going to take both and just do a regular single crochet. Again, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and do back loop only for the first 7 stitches, and then I'm going to take both for my last stitch, both loops. I'm not going to do just the back loop. And I'll show you that one more time. Get a little bit more yarn. And you want this ribbed border, the rows that you do, to be the same number of stitches. Okay, just to show you, I'm going to stop for a second and go through both. Just like that, and single crochet, chain one, and turn my work, and you can kind of see how it's coming together. So we're going to do the same number of rows that you have at the end of your sleeve. So for the medium, I have 52, so I'm going to do 52 rows of single crochet for that. I'm going to do the same thing for the border of my cardigan, the bottom border, and I'll show you the variation that we're going to be doing for the neckline. So finish up 2 of these, one for each side, that matches the same amount of stitches at the ends of your sleeves, and then I'll meet you back and I'll show you how to work on the edging for the cardigan. So I finished up the rib border of my sleeve, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the yarn, and I'm going to leave it very long so that I have enough to not only seam up this edge but attach it on to my sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cardigan, and then what I'll do is I'll meet you back and we'll start seaming it on, and I'll show you how to do that. So I've turned my sleeve inside out, and I am actually going to go ahead and show you how to seam up the gap that's here. That we have in our sleeve where we joined. So you'll remember we left our tag really nice and long so that we could adjust for any gaps that we would have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put my yarn on my needle, get that through, and then I'm going to go ahead and we want to kind of isolate this so we're not getting anything that we shouldn't. And I'm going to take another good grab through both of there, and I'm going to grab here and here. So we're grabbing kind of on the outside there, and I'm going to sew that together, and you can see how nicely it brought it together. So now we don't have those gaps. I will do it twice to make it nice and strong, and also because we want to make sure that we don't, I like those ends to be nice and strong so they don't tear or rip later. So we'll go through one more time, and this time I'm going to just go ahead and knot it just like that. And there you go. So easy peasy, we fixed the gap that we have there, and it makes it a lot less noticeable from before. Okay, so now it's time to join my sleeve to the ribbed border, and I have gone ahead and attached my yarn onto a needle, and I'm going to find where my seam is, and that's where you kind of have the thicker pieces right there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at my yarn right there, and I'm going to go into this back loop right here, and I'll bring this in and bring that closer just like that, and I'm going to find my first row right there. Let me get that nice and tight and get that piece there, and I'll go through again just like that, and then I'm going to find where the next row is, and I'm going to find my next stitch. And what you're doing is you're counting your rows here with your stitches here and just going to line them up. And so you want to be pretty consistent. What I'll usually try to do is, when I'm looking at this, is find two stitches that look similar and repeat them over and over again. So that way I'm not counting too many. And what I'll sometimes do is, if you see where my ribbed border is I'll pick 2 stitches in between and then 2 stitches in between, because each of these segments right here, that's 2 stitches in between right there. So I've done 2, so now I'm going to go to this between these 2, grab there and go around, and one more time here, and my next stitch back loop only, and I'm going to continue doing that. So just to show you what it's going to look like is you're going to kind of have a border just like that there before the rib. So it looks really, really pretty. You can see that right there. So I'm going to continue this around, and when I'm done, we're going to start working on the edging for the main body of the sweater. So I'll meet you back in a little shortly. So before we seam on the ribbed border for the neckline and the bottom, I want to attach a single crochet border, which is going to make it easy to seam those other sides on. So along the neckline here, we have an area where we have our double crochets, our skip one and our double crochets. So we're going to place a single crochet in each of those stitches all along. And then when we get to the end, it's a little bit trickier because along the border here, we have some half double crochets, and then we have our double crochets, and this is the right side so you can see it a little bit better. That is our half double crochet and then our double crochet. And in the areas where we have our chain 2, which is right along here, it makes for kind of a thicker edge. So to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add on a single crochet along here. For every half double crochet, we're going to add 1.5, which I know sounds strange, but I'll explain how to do that. And then we'll put 2 in the area of where there's the double crochet. So in order to do 1.5, what you'll do is you'll place 1 in this first half double crochet, and then you'll place 2 along there. Basically, for every area where you have double crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, you'll have 2 stitches here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7. So in this area here, I'll have placed 7 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm working now along the inside border. I'm going to go ahead and we'll make a little slip knot. And what we'll do is we'll start in any one of these stitches. I'm going to probably work, let's say, right about here. And I will slip stitch into that edge there, and then go back into the same stitch and double crochet. Whoops, just like that. And then into the next one, and you can go into the stitch or you can go into the chain space. It's whatever your preference is. It's not going to make much of a difference as long as you're consistent with the sweater. So going into each of these stitches just like that, nice and loose. Don't put too much tension, otherwise it will crinkle up a little bit. So we'll just go, this is the skip one, go in there, and then to the next one, get a little bit more yarn, just like that. And then in the corner, we're going to, basically we have one more stitch here, and then we're going to chain 2 to around the corner, and now we're into the area of our double crochet. So I'm going to do 1, and then 2, and then this is our first half double crochet right here, so I'm only going to place 1. And if you need to, put a stitch marker in every other half double crochet so that you know that this is the one that needs 2. So I'm at my double crochet, so I'm going to put in 2 stitches just like that. And now this is the second half double crochet, and I'm going to put in 2 single crochets into there. And hopefully that makes sense, and you can see how we've rounded the border. We've put in our 2 little single crochet or 2 little chains right there to make it nice and even. There's not a lot of tension, so it's really nice and flat, and I'm just going to keep going. So now we're at a double crochet, so we'll put in 2 single crochets just like that. So this is the first half double crochet, so only 1 single crochet. Back to our double crochets, let's put in 1 and 2, and this is our second half double crochet, so this one will get 2 into that border, and nice and even. We don't want too much tension, like I said. We don't want it to be crinkled, so keep your single crochets nice and loose. So now we're back to 1, and then we'll get a little bit more yarn and we'll go double crochets, and then this is the 2 half double crochet. And that's basically it. We're going to do this all the way around. When we get to the corners on the other side, because it's going to be one continuous, we'll chain 2 again, and then I'll show you when we get to the neck to the neck area where we did our split, how to fix that area. So I'll meet you back for that. So I've reached my center neckline area, and I'm going to go ahead and place 3 single crochets into here in order to help fan out that sharp angle. So 1, 2, and 3, and I'll just move right back into the next area, and let's see if I can find my chain there and do my single crochet. So what this is going to do is, as I'm working as I'm attaching on the hem, it's going to give it a little bit more space and make it so that it's not such a sharp angle. And now I'm just going to continue all the way back down the other side with those single crochets, just keeping them nice and loose, and I'll slip stitch in to where I started. The next step after this is going to be to add on the seam, the border, the ribbed border, to the bottom and to the neckline. So to do that, I'm going to go over a couple of steps to make it easy for you. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'll meet you back to show you how to finish up this cardigan. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to talk about how we're going to put on the borders for this. So for the bottom, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to make the same chain of 8 that I made for the sleeves, just like this, and I'm going to attach it on. And to figure out how much I need, I'm actually going to count my stitches and then have that correspond with my with how many of the rows I make for my ribbed border. You also have the option to just use math, which is what I'll put down below in the pattern, but remember that everybody does this differently, so my recommendation is to count your rows. So that'll be for the ribbed border on the bottom. Now for the next part, which is the neckline, you are going to count your stitches or do your math and add up your numbers, but don't forget, when you make your ribbed border, you have to add in 8 stitches on each side for the portion that's going to be here that you've added, as well as your 3 additional stitches that you've done on your neckline. So I'm going to work on those, and then I will meet you back after I've seamed it up to show you what the finished product looks like. So we're back after I've joined the bottom edge here along the sweater. What I did is I just stitched into the loop on the inside as opposed to the loop on the outside, which is what I did for the sweater as well, and it creates a nice little border here. For the bottom edging, I did the same chain of 8 that I did for the sleeves, but for the neckline, I wanted something a little bit thicker, so I went ahead and did a row of 12 here. This is just going to make a nice little neckline. It'll fold over a little bit if I want it to. And what I've done is I've turned my sweater inside out. I'm going to lay it out flat for you. And I've attached it with some stitch markers just in the middle, exactly where, and at the ends here. And as always, this is going to be shorter when you measure it in inches, but not in stitches compared to your actual sweater. So don't worry, as we attach it, it'll fix itself. It'll stretch out a little bit and get to where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and take out this corner stitch marker, a very long piece of yarn, and all I'm going to do is just find my corner here, and you're going to be working first along the ribbed border for the bottom, and then we're gonna work along the edge of the sweater, the neckline of the sweater. So I'm going to just go ahead and, how I like to, just kind of join them together and get them together make it nice and tight. You want this to be a really strong connection area. Then after we do this, then we'll start looking at our stitches. And let me pull this yarn a little bit more. And we'll go ahead and start attaching. So the same thing, I'm going to work just on the outside stitch and find the corresponding stitch on this side here, just like that. And same thing here. And I'm going to follow this all the way up. So next one here and right there. That. And if it seems like it's a little bit tight, don't worry, when we block it, it's going to stretch out a little bit and that'll make it nice and easy. Next. And like we talked about before, the main thing is really just to be consistent when you're working along a ribbed border, to make sure you're picking the same places on your ribbed edge over and over again so that you don't undercount or overcount your stitches. So that's why you'll see I'm always picking up the same 2 areas on my stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the next one. Go right there. So this is a good place to stop and show you, because I finished the ribbing here and I'm going to start working along the single crochet border that we did earlier. So I'm going to just grab the outside here of my chain. So you can see my chains here, and I'm just going to work on this one, and that's going to create a really nice border. So again, just picking the same 2 stitches on my ribbed border will make sure that I stay nice and consistent. There's the next one there, and if I'm confused, I look to see where I'm at for my border, and I'm going to grab a stitch. So I'm going to keep working this. I'm going to make sure that when I get to my neckline that I follow that area, and then I'll meet you back. So here is our final finished product. You can see here's the neckline and the collar. Here's the wrong side and the right. We have our lovely and beautiful sleeves that are here as well, and our little seamed border. Now the edge, if I can get that part into this video, is straight, right? Like you can see it there. It does curl up a little bit when you wear it, so it'll be a little bit higher on this side than on this side. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. It helps to grow the channel. And please subscribe. I will be putting out more tutorials regularly for the fall. Thank you, and happy crocheting!